put on the recording and then share my screen. So the next topic will be about mineral content in Finnish heritage rye. And in this Diversity to Fields project, which started this year, we were able to do full mineral analysis of heritage rye and also one modern rye. And all these rye were grown at the same field next to each other at the Mustiala Organic Education and Research Farm. And we had only one fertilized and one non-fertilized repetition. So we had only two of the same sort. And of these, they were sown then 2020 in the autumn, the 3rd of September, and we harvested them this year, the 29th of July, so pretty early. And out of these harvests, we sent in then 500 grams, so half a kilo, and we took them from the non-fertilized harvest. This soil where they were growing, it's kind of sandy clay with some humus. And the year before, or 2 years before, it has been cultivated with grass. So before this field trial was established. And this non-fertilized did not get any manure, but the years before, when we had grass cultivation here, then we used only cattle manure from our own farm. And let's then start by looking at some pictures about these rye that were in this trial, and they are quite similar by their outlook. So it's quite difficult to by an eye to see the difference between these landrace rye that we have in Finland. The modern rye that we had in this rye cultivation here was Reetta, which is a Finnish population rye, and it was released in 2009. Then we had Nyby Niilo, which is also a population rye, and I think it was the first. It was the first time it was on the field trial in Mustiala, and it is now also registered as a conservation variety in Finland. Then we had Sangaste, which is an Estonian variety from 1875 or 1870s, some sources from 1878. And on the map here, you can see then the location in southern Estonia where it was breeded and have been breeded then, and mainly by then selection breeding. And Sangaste is a conservation variety in Estonia. Nowadays it is quite popular as well in Finland, so there are hundreds of hectares where it is grown, this Sangaste, especially in southeastern Finland, and it is in ecological farming that it is used. Why it is used, it is that it has slightly higher grain and a higher yield than our traditional land races is in Finland. Then we had in the field trial an landrace rye from Karelia, from Aunus, and we know that it at least goes to the 1940s, but most likely then elder than this, and it has been now for a long period grown pretty close to Mustiala at Kortenniemi forest farm. Then we had Myttäälän rye, which is from Pirkanmaa. We don't know so much about this. It was cultivated for a long time at MTT, so the Finnish Agriculture Research Center's one of their research farms, because the leader of that Myttäälän, in Myttäälä, this Myttäälän rice, the leader of the farm liked it very much. This rye was acting in a little bit different ways from the other rice, as it was rolling its leaves on the long end in these very dry weather conditions. And Daniel Brandt from Estonia is here now also today, and he noticed that maybe this could even be Secale sylvestris, some kind of older forest rye. We know from farmers also in Hämeen region that they have told me that they used to cultivate a rye which had very long and slim seeds, and they called it needle rye. And it may be that this Myttäälän rye is that type of rye. We have not been able to find this needle rye on any farms, like still grown. And Myttäälän rye came then from the gene bank, whereas this Aunus rye we have got from Maatiainen ry. So these Aunus have been cultivated all the time on some farms or in some smaller areas, and then been reproduced. Hermanni landrace rye comes from Kymenlaakso region, and the farmer, it has been preserved at one farm, so it is not from the gene bank, and in this family it has been then grown for a long time. Then we have Mustialan Tvengsberg. Tvengsberg is a conservation variety registered in Norway, and nowadays it is also registered in Finland under the name Mustiala Tvengsberg. And this one was found in start of 1970s or late 1960s in Finnskogana in Norway, where the forest Finns are living. And the Finns have been emigrated from Finland in on several occasions from the medieval age and perhaps even before that. And this Tvengsberg, he told that his family came from Hankasalmi in Finland. So I have put on the map here also this Hankasalmi. And this Tvengsberg rye, it has been made DNA research on this in Sweden by Matti Leino, and he then have been writing that this rye totally genetically differs from all other rye. And if you look at it on its characteristica, then Tvengsberg is making a lot of straw. So whereas all other landrace rye we have in Finland, they make, let's say, from 3 to 5, 8, less than 10 straw per seed, then this Mustiala Tvengsberg has a minimum of nearly 10, and it can even make up to 50 and 60 straw out of this one cereal. So that's the biggest difference there. Then we have Ivo landrace rye, which comes from Sortavala, that today is located in Russia, but this belongs to this Finnish Karelia, and it has after that been grown in Viinijärvi, which is also on the Finnish side in Karelia. So, and the last one is Polvijärven Matti, which was found also in northern Karelia in 2008, and it has been grown in a small scale, like on 1 hectare, and its story goes also at least back to 100 years back, or a little bit more. So these were the ones we had then in this analyze. So I'm not going to make that many conclusions here because this is just first study, and we don't know if we will be able to make this make more of the similar group of landrace ray for the next year, and next year we have not sown any winter cereals in this project for next year. So it may be that the results we see here, it will only be like 1 year's result, and we will not perhaps have any continuing to this research. The analyses were carried out, yes, by Eurofin's laboratory, and if we look at the phosphorus, it's in gram per kilo dry matter, then we can see that there are not that many big differences. Hermanni has the highest amount, and Reta, which was our modern population variety, has the lowest. If we look at potassium, here we can see that Hermanni again has pretty much higher values than the others, and again, especially then if we look at Reta. The others are more or less on the same level, we could say. With then, yes, Polvijärven Matti and Sangaste having there then the next highest value. If we look at magnesium, then again, Hermanni rye from Kymenlaakso has the highest amount, but here in magnesium there is not that big differences either between these rye. So Tvengsberg and Myttälä is having then slightly less than Hermanni, and all the rest then coming on the same line. If we look then on the iron content, then we can see that here is a real huge difference. And Mustiala Tvengsberg have this really high content of iron. So there is definitely something that is totally different, or now in this Tvengsberg rye compared then to all the other ryes. Also, Sangaste and Ivo, you can see, have higher amounts of iron than the rest then. So there is something in this iron content which, or some ability then in Tvengsberg that makes it having that much more iron than the other plants. If we look at mangan, then here is not that high differences either. We can see that Myttälä Ruis has the highest content, but then followed very closely by Tvengsberg and Sangaste. And I think this is the last one, it's zinc. And here you can see that Myttälä Ruis and Tvengsberg have the highest content, then Sangaste is coming as on the third place here. We can also see that the population rye Reta here has pretty high amounts as well, whereas then Hermanni here has scoring the lowest. And again, it's not that big differences between all of these. So as a whole, then we could say that Hermanni was like scoring a lot of high amounts in these minerals. And if we look at the 1000 grain weight in gram, we can also see that it's the lowest in Hermanni. So it means that Tvengsberg and Hermanni has the lowest 1000 grain weight, which means that there are more bran in the same amount of analyzed sample, which then of course will give more minerals. So not that strange in itself here. We can see here also that Sangas, they have the highest 1000 grain weight, and even though that Sangas, they was scoring in many of the mineral content results, coming in on, for example, the 3rd place. It's not totally perhaps related then to this 1000 grain weight, and also if we remember now the high iron content in Tvengsberg, then it cannot also only been explained by this 1000 grain weight. Let's then have a little bit a look a little bit more on this Tvengsberg rye, which is making so big bushes and getting so many straws. And we were doing in 2019, we made a fodder analysis. It is Valio who carried it out in Finland on this Tvengsberg, this slash and burn rye. And in 2019, we were sowing it in the spring, and we took the green leaves fodder sample in the autumn. And as I said, Valio was carrying out this fodder analysis, and I have now been putting here, because I got interested in this, that what is actually happening in this rye. And it interests me also that what kind of difference do we see if we are sowing the rye in the autumn, or if we are sowing the rye in the spring. So if we sow it in the spring, which in this first leaf sample here was the case, then you can see that the iron content in the autumn in the green leaves was 880, and it's milligrams milligrams per kilo dry matter. And in the grain, and the grain sample here, it is from this same Tvengsberg, but it was cultivated or sown in the autumn. So I would like to have then also samples of leaves of Tvengsberg that has been grown or sown in the autumn, and leaves sample taken then the next year spring. And at the same time also we need these grains from slash and burn Tvengsberg rye that have been cultivated or sown in the spring. But you can see that there is a huge amount of iron in Tvengsberg in the leaves. And of course, still in the grain, it was also huge compared to the other land races that we had in this small analysis. Another thing is that we can see a huge drop in the amount of potassium. There was a lot of potassium in the leaves, and then we have a smaller amount left that are available in the grains. And the same goes also with mangan. It also dropped more than half. But I am not an expert now in these minerals, and it would be really nice if somebody of you knew perhaps something more about these minerals. You can see in zinc, we have the opposite, that in the leaves we had 23 milligrams, and then in the grains there was much more, so 40 milligrams. So this is definitely something that we will continue to look at, because if we could do a product out of the leaves which have this kind of high content of iron, then it could give a lot of possibilities for new product development, both for animal fodder, perhaps dry it and make some kind of pellet. Perhaps it could be used for instead of these minerals, this would be like a more more nature connected or closer to nature connected way of getting minerals instead of having minerals from mining industry. So this iron could be used for that. Another possibility is that could we use this green mass of the leaves that comes from Twingsberg in making some kind of products for humans? That's also a very interesting question, which needs then most likely, we have been discussing with the students that perhaps you need similar equipment that you are using when you are, for example, harvesting and cutting nettles. There are some farms in Finland that are specialized on nettle cultivation. And here, I'm not going to make an comparison between now this Twingsberg and the nettle, but it's in 100 grams. The nettle iron content is usually shown in how much iron there is per 100 grams. And it is slightly higher than what we find now in these Twingsberg grains. But of course, it's much, much less if we compare it with the leaves, what we have in this Twingsberg rye. So this is like shortly, and I have also some sources here in the presentation, which is available then on the project homepage. But now I would really like to hear your ideas about this, perhaps this high iron content, but also about the other minerals. So what do you think about this?
Annika, could you show the phosphorus slide?
Yes, just a minute. I will try to go back. I think it was the first one here. Yes.
Okay, thank you. It doesn't explain anything.
There is not so much differences.
No, I was just thinking about phosphorus and then this iron content, but in Twingsberg. But
yes, it's not
yep.
it's not seen here now.
Doesn't explain that.
Yep. No. And otherwise also Twingsberg was not otherwise, I mean it has a small grain. It was the second smallest 1,000 grain weight on Twingsberg, and the smallest was then in Hämeen, which of course let Hämeen then Hämeen is on the top here in many of these mineral analyses. So yeah, some other thoughts about this high iron content. Is there anybody that have made some similar analysis? I don't know now. Yeah. So it cannot be explained now only about the 1,000 grain weight, this huge amount of iron. So there must be something in this plant that is a kind of have a very good cooperation with either microorganisms in the soil, or it has a larger root network. As it is more bushy, it makes more bushes, more straw. Is the iron in a form that humans can use? Yes, it is. It depends on now what you are doing with this again. As all minerals are, they are bound by these phytoacids. So if you make a bread out of this Twingsberg and you bake it with sourdough, as it has been traditionally done in Finland, then it will be available in a higher, of course, in a higher amount to humans. I don't know about the green mass. For example, if we would make a smoothie of these green leaves that had this very high content of iron, then I don't know then about the availability from this green mass. I don't know if you know, Juha-Matti, how human system can use this iron if we would eat, for example, these green leaves and make a raw smoothie out of it.
I don't know, but wheatgrass, I think it has been used for smoothies. So
So Heini, I think that this is something that we should make then more. We should find those persons that are real experts on this, how minerals are being uptaken from green leaves by humans, and we should then make these food trials. So there could be several different products that we could develop from this green mass. And for farmers, of course, this would be very nice. We could sow our rye in the spring, and we could cut it in the autumn, and we could use this green mass for human consumption, or we could use it, of course, for grazing for sheep. Sheep usually traditionally were grazing rye. They like it a lot. Also, deer and elk like this Twingsberg lot. So we find them often also grazing on fields with the Twingsberg rye. This has farmers from Norway, where it has been grown on a larger scale for a longer time, told us that it's in these fields with Twingsberg you will find these wild animals grazing. So there is then something. I was actually thinking more that it perhaps had more sugar or something like that. That could be a reason why animals also liked it more. But yeah. So perhaps we wrap up this and we take this now just as an information that there was such a huge amount of iron both in this green mass but also then in the cereal in Twingsberg.